So I'm going to read you. I'm going to read another person's dream.
Yeah. Let's do another
Yeah.
one.
Okay. But I just wanted to go to what you had said about illusion.
Mm.
So many people think dreams are just illusion. Totally not. They're the mirror of oneself. So
Yeah.
they're hardly illusion.
It's a
Okay.
tremendous reality. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so these dreams actually are all by women because I took them from my book. But let me say, we could ask, it certainly could apply to men or however people identify, and it always depends on how they're going to interpret it anyway. So, yeah. Okay, so here's another one. These are not actually happy dreams, I must say. So she dreamt her father, again, father, put his hand on her thigh so forcefully it burned her flesh to the bone. Branded, she could not rise against the resistance of his hand. Later, she thought about filling the wound with concrete. How could this wound heal? Concrete would make her flesh inflexible, heavy, and non-human.
Okay. And people see me trying to catch up with my writing. That's another thing. The second pass of my typical process is that I'm going to miss something. They're going to go, wait, that happened before that, and I wrote it down wrong. I get a lot of clarification from people. And another thing that I thought immediately about, say, father, hand on thigh, I thought this feels icky. This feels like sexual abuse. And there's two things I don't do for the purposes of my entertainment. This is education, but it's also entertainment. I do not put people's rape or child abuse experiences on display. So I would never, I would advise people, and I have advised people, I appreciate you reaching out. I would love to help you. I think you should get into professional counseling privately and not put this material. I won't put this material on my program. So those are like two broad areas I just don't get into. But since we're talking about it academically as a review of someone else, not your personal dream, that was my initial impression of like, what would I do with that? If this suddenly came out and I was recording with someone, I would probably stop and say, let's talk about getting you into counseling and not talk about this here. I'd say, thanks for coming. I didn't know we were going to go there. But again, academically. So that was my first thought. If I were to do this privately or professionally with that person, I maybe wouldn't emphasize that point right off the bat. I might say, have you had experiences like this in real life? I would just throw it out there saying, is this iconic of something else, or is this an expression of something you went through? That, because that's two different directions of looking at it. So clarifying that, if they said, yeah, I was abused by my father or by a male role model, trusted person, burned to the bone, this unalterable experience that cut through layers of physical flesh right to the very center of the person. It's cut to the bone. We have those that iconic word description in that form for a reason. Something not a superficial scratch, but really serious. Branded. The idea of branding is permanent. This is never going to go away, and to the point where it is holding me down. And that could be physically, I was held down in real life, thus my experience, but this is holding me back from progressing. This is something that's always going to be pressing on me in some way. Filling it with concrete. The concrete thing is, so you want to heal the wound, and that she actually went on to say something about healing the wound and questioning whether concrete was the right way to do it. But the idea of filling with concrete is, if I patch this up, I'm going to use something stronger than flesh, something that cannot be burned or melted through. I'm going to make this wound stronger than it ever was before. and but the inflexibility. But if I turn myself to stone, so to speak, am I even human anymore? Am I handling this in a way that's going to hurt me worse than the experience? Those are all my initial thoughts.
So I wanted to add, because we're doing kind of a joint deal.
Yes.
So one of the things I find interesting is the association that in a word, I'm going to use a word you had used earlier, and that's symbolism. So if you follow back in the tales, the stories, the mythologies of the world, we see all the same symbols that we see in people's dreams. So for instance, his hand on her thigh could relate to like the Grail legend. So the Grail King had a wound in the thigh.
The Fisher King, right? I was just reading about that. I had to do what is it? A footnote in a recent book to describe that to the reader, because maybe people might not know the Arthurian legend,
Exactly.
and I didn't know what that reference was.
Yeah, but it means that in fact he's not strong enough in the thigh. He needs to gain strength in his leg, and the legs hold us up. So the whole dream, even though it might relate to abuse, for this person it actually, they never mentioned abuse. But you know, some people don't mention it. I didn't say as well after I repeated the dream to you. This was a dream that repeated for 20 years.
Wow.
So the issue of the thigh wound or the being branded was not solved. It kept repeating, and saying, wait a second, you haven't found your strength yet. You are still under the thumb or branded by the father. And what also is interesting is, and I just add this, I have given this dream to a people in China, and one of the, here's culture, one of the women commented, in China, concrete is made out of mud, and that represents the earth and the feminine. So her interpretation was that she's going to fill her wound with something that would be more on the side of the feminine. And not, it was quite interesting. So her culture, completely different from ours, in an absolutely different interpretation.
Oh yeah, and that goes to show too that, like I was saying before, is I'm happy to be wrong, and never would I be more happy to be wrong than to say, were you abused? And they go, oh no, that's nothing to do with that. And let's say they're being honest. Okay, let's take a completely different tack on that and look at it in a different direction. What does a thigh wound mean to you in this iconic sense? Yeah. So,
exactly. But you see, I think your intuition on the abuse. Well, if the father is branding the daughter, she was abused emotionally.
Sure, may not have been physical. Yeah,
taken away her whole sense of herself, and her body again. Another one. The body is damaged.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Those body damage in general, and that goes to, we were talking about the danger of looking up what does it mean to lose my teeth in a dream.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are very specific things that dream books or websites would say, but is it true for this individual? It's a iconic of body damage, so to speak. But it could be if you associate teeth with biting, and or you have, say, a traumatic experience where you fought with your brother and you bit him deeply and you had to go to the ER, and you felt guilty for the rest of your life. Now teeth falling out is like, I wish I wasn't as aggressive with my relationships, because that personal representation connects it to your childhood and a traumatic experience where you had significant regret. And we go in a completely different direction than the dream books, because it's what it means to that individual based on their experience.
Always, it's what it means to that person.